what Benjamin Franklin once said, that in wine is wisdom, in beer is freedom, in water are bacteria. So I'm trying to stay very healthy, as you can see. Do you know the supposedly worst curse that is in Chinese language? May you live in interesting times. This is the worst curse in China, apparently, and for sure this is the worst curse in Disco World by Terry Pratchett. So, well, you might see that I'm kind of fan of Terry Pratchett. So we are actually living in very, very, very interesting times. We have self-driven cars, self-developing applications, self-tuning databases, self-maintaining servers, self-fixing applications, and so on and so on. But, well, I don't know what is your experience, but according to my experience, well, I actually never seen application that was self-fixing. I saw some applications that were self-fucking. I saw some databases that were self-crushing, but I've never seen a database that was self-fixed. So, yes, those are very interesting times we live in right now. And you probably have heard, and you're hearing a lot of, well, trendy words like cloud, consolidation, and so on and so on. And this is so very trendy right now. But let's look on the consolidation. Let's look how consolidation actually works in most of the companies I've seen in my career. If you will think of this single beer as a database, and this table here as a consolidation platform like Oracle Exadata, Oracle Supercluster, ODA, some other big fancy server, it usually works like this, that vendor is giving you a platform to put your database in. You are resigning from all other storages and softwares. You are, kicking them back, and you say, okay, I don't have to pay for that anymore. I have everything consolidated in here. In most of the cases, people are putting a lot of different types of databases on one consolidation platform. So, for example, let's try to do one experiment right now. What if I tell you that, well, this beer is a gift from me to you. I have only 6 beers, but who wants a free beer? Okay, come, get it. Seriously, I'm not joking. But I should probably say one thing. One of those beers were really shaked before. Okay, probably this one. Sure. So, yeah, this is really shaked right now. So, they grabbed it really fast, but I've seen hesitation in their eyes. If you want to open it right now, you cannot have drink here. Oh, okay. So, what has happened, actually, what is happening, is that when you have a gift like this, that you have a lot of good stuff in one place, and you spoil one of them, actually, the whole package is not as attractive as it was at the beginning. Because, well, in consolidated environment, you need only one broken one broken server, one broken database, one missecured database to lose attraction for everything, right? So how can you exploit consolidated environments with one faulty server, one faulty database in it? It's really, really simple, especially in a public sector. For example, let's assume that I am a developer of one of the companies that won a public tender, and I'm requesting for a development database from a customer, in the public sector, and I'm saying, okay, please create a database for me, and I want for my application server to have all possible privileges for this database. So I want to have sysdba. Sysdba is a root for Oracle. So of course they will say no. We'll say, okay, so please give me a DBA. And they will say no. But then you will list all the privileges, all a few hundred privileges that belong to a role DBA, and send them. They will say no. So you remove one of these privileges and send them, and so on and so on and so on. At one point, they are so fucking mad at you, but you keep going, and you leave actually only one privilege that is important for you for the type of the database. You will leave create an index, which we will try to exploit. Create an index is a privilege that lets you to create any index on your database. It should be harmless, right? So let's check what will happen with a harmless privilege on, well, maybe not the youngest version of Oracle, but still supported. I don't have more slides, but I will upload them, of course. So here we are. I've created some kind of database, and well, I'm granting create an index to my HR schema, which is for my HR application. So if I will log in, of course, with default password, because this is the most secure password, right? If I will log in to this schema and I'm starting development, I see from session prefs. Fuck. Okay, I'm sorry, I have to grab something to focus. So, this is a water, right? I will pay a fee, don't worry. Yeah, I think it's much better now. So, I can see a few privileges in here, and this is the one that is the most interesting for me. So what can I do with this privilege to escalate further on the 11.204 database, Enterprise Edition? Well, at the beginning, I know that on system user, which has very high privileges, I have the temporary table that is called OL$. It is API for old technique of stabilization SQL plants in Oracle. It's not supported anymore, but all appropriate objects are still there. The case is that everyone has privileges to write to this temporary table. But I have also additional privilege to create an index so I can index this table. It doesn't sound scary, right? But let's assume that I will create a simple function. Auth ID current user. is pragma autonomous transaction begin execute immediate x, return x, and go. I have a very simple function. This function says, well, one input parameter is a string parameter. I will return a string parameter in a deterministic way. So each and every time for the same input, I will have the same output, right? And the very important phrase here is auth ID current user. What does it mean? It means that the function will be executed with rights of the user who will call this function. By default, all the functions are executed with the rights of definer. So by default, the function is executed with the rights of user HR. So if I will force highly privileged user to execute this function with appropriate input, I can grant myself additional privileges. And I can use it, I can force system user, which has very high privileges, to execute this function by creating an index on the table that belongs to system. So first of all, I will let system to execute my function. Later, I will create index on this table, but it won't be a simple index. It will be a function-based index. So each time I will insert something to the column called spare2, value from this column will be passed to this PL/SQL function here and executed with rights of the user system. Well, let's try it with a simple privilege escalation. For example, I would like to access table in another schema. Oh, Polish NLS. So insufficient privileges I get. But let's try to make simple insert to the spare2 column. Here I am. So, well, you might say, okay, this is lame because this is a database for me. It was created for me. I didn't escape my database, right? But let's try to use more powerful privilege, which is called create a directory to HR. If this is a standard consolidation environment provided by default from Oracle or from Oracle partner or from whoever, everything will be installed with default settings. So, you know that the owner of all running databases there is user named Oracle. The authorization group for everyone is a group called DBA. All the paths are the same on each and every environment you will check. So, for example, I know that by default, SSH works and the default location of all authorized keys files are /home oracle.ssh, right? So, well, if I'll try to log in here on this server with default SSH privileges, if the port is open, well, password check, cool. But let's try to put my public RSA key sorry. Okay. And let's try to execute a simple PLSQL anonymous block. File is UTL file, open dir SSH key, authorized keys, append UTL file, put line, RSA, okay, put line in v file. Cool. And voila. There's one more. Come on. Don't be shy. Okay, but you can say that this is actually the most very easy to secure, right? It's very easy to block SSH on the server. Well, this is the fact, but usually it's not blocked. But let's assume that it is, and that I can't actually log in through SSH to the server. If I have created a directory and this is a default installation, it's actually better for me that I can't log in through SSH because it is too obvious. I can use more fun technique. Starting with database 11G, there's something called external table with preprocessor. So what I will do, I will create two directories, one pointing to /bin, well, because all the cool stuff is there, and one pointing to TMP, because, well, no one is looking there, right? So what I will do, I have here a simple anonymous PL/SQL block that will create a text file in temporary localization, hidden text file called oralog.log. No one will think it's something, well, dangerous or something like that. And since this is a standard trivial installation, I actually know from head all paths that are important to use in the script. And I will use this script to be able to log into my database with operating system authorization without a password to change password of the most powerful user in the database, which is called sys. So at the end, I will display file etc/oratab, which contains information about each installed database on this consolidation platform. So let's create it. The file has been created, and now I have to use the last trick. Use external table with a preprocessor. What does it do? Well, external table with a preprocessor is a way of loading data into a database from, well, by design, a compressed file. So let's assume that you have CSV text file with a lot of data, and you are compressing it with zip2, for example, and putting it on the server. And you want to load the contents of this file to a database. You are using a preprocessor to execute the compression script on the compressed file, and the contents by pipe is putting into input to the external table, and you can see the data without decompressing the file physically on the disk. So at the low level, when you are executing something like this from a preprocessor, you will see that the process that is started is, for example, decompress my file and a path to a file. So what if I will use bash as a preprocessor on previously created script? Let's try. I will make select from this table. What has happened? Select executed bash and the path to my file. So I'm right now logged into the database. User is altered, and this is a contents of my ORATAP file, and I can see that two databases are installed here. One is ORCL in version 12.1.0, and the other one is my DUPA 11 in version 11.2. This is the database I'm exploiting. So right now I am able to execute every command at the operating system level with Oracle permissions from SQL. So I don't have to log in anywhere. Everyone will think that the database is doing this stuff, so it won't be audited as easily as normal SSH login. So I can prepare each and every script I want to do this stuff. So when I'm already capable of doing whatever I want at the operating system, and I have access to all the databases, well, I am the god. And, well, you may, for example, install additional software, like additional auditing, or database vault, which is securing access to your data even from the hardest user possible. But you have to know that even if you have this additional software, you are not completely protected if your configuration, if your installation is default, and by default I mean shit. Because, for example, no one, almost never, is auditing access to the dictionary. So if I will find data object ID of a table I want to check, this is ID of a table in which are my data. So, for example, let's imagine that I can't do a simple select. I can't do something like this. Select salary from employees, where employee ID equals 100. If I would have database vault installed and configured, I wouldn't be able to do this select. But if I know what is data object ID of a table and what is a file containing the data, I can use a very simple script, which I wrote in Python. This script is a copy, or is a tool that was created to fix low-level problems. For example, I am able to edit a data file on a low level and correct different fuck-ups on the operating system level, like wrong checksum, like bugs that are on the low level, on the level of writing a block to a file. But, well, more than that, I can access data without any privileges from a database level. I can access data without any auditing that is built into the Oracle. So I can say, for example, find in a file 5 object ID 83515. And I see meta blocks for this object, and I see data blocks for this object. So let's try to set pointer to the file 5 and to this block with data. This is map of the structures that are the part of this data block. It was not very hard for me to find out what are the structures, because over the years you can find each and every information about it in the internet. And for years there was this tool that I wrote as an open source. This tool was provided by Oracle until database 10G as a tool to correct database blocks on a low level. From 11, they removed libraries for this tool because, well, it should be considered as malware. Because right now, if I know what is the structure, I can create my own simple select parser. And if I'm looking for a data of employee ID for the number 100, like here, if I will check data dictionary, I will know for sure that this column is the first column in a row. And all rows are here as a byte string in this row data structure, and all pointers are here in KDBR structure. So a simple row looks like this. KDBR of 0, I have a flag of a row. If flag is 2C, then let's make a dump here. So if it starts from 2C, like here, the row exists. If it would be 3C, the row is deleted. I have number of columns, and I have length of each column and the contents of each column. So if I know that, I can do select col 0 equals number 100. And I can see that slot number 9 has the contents of my data. So if I will display it and format it properly, number, 4 characters, time, character, 4 numbers, I have all the data I need. So without encryption, if someone has access to the operating system and the data files, well, you are fucked. So what can you do? First of all, you have to, you can buy all those fancy products for the enterprise. So you can protect yourself with Database Vault, which is, well, expensive. To encrypt the data files, you have to buy Advanced Security as an additional package, which is, well, fucking expensive. And you still won't be secure enough if your configuration is made by default. Because by default, Oracle is using something called automatic memory management, and all memory files are kept on /dev shm tmpfs on Linux, and you can access them as a regular file. And all database blocks are unencrypted while being read from disk to the memory. So you can also use this tool to open a file that is which is a representation of a memory and do the same thing. What's more important, you can even change something. For example, oh, sorry. last name of this user is king. Let's try to change it at a low level. So I can set offset for the last name here. First byte is a length, so I have to skip this 1 byte of length. So the offset will be 7515, right? Actually. And now I can go, I can try to modify it. Modify byte string, well, dupa. Are you sure? Yes. Block data change. To save changes, you have to be in edit mode. But that's not everything. Here, in the first structure on 16th byte, there is a checksum of the database block. But simple usage of the GDB and, well, it's not allowed to disassemble or functions, so I wasn't doing that. So simple usage of GDB and, let's say, low-level profiling of a checksum function reveals a very short XOR algorithm of counting Oracle block checksum. So I can say sum apply and save. Set mode edit save. Okay. Saved successfully to disk. To revert changes, I have a copy in my memory. Type dupa. I don't want to do it. Well, right now, nothing has changed because my database block is in memory. And I did changes at the disk level. But once I will flush buffer cache, so once I will remove everything from a memory and I will read a block, so seriously, I wrote this tool to fix a database. This is just, well, you know how it is. You can use a knife to cut tomato or kill someone. So this is just a side effect. And this tool is available on my GitHub, so you can download it. So you can check it on GitHub/Aura600PL. But please use it wisely. And when you will see it on production system, it should be really removed because you can see what can be done. And if you would be using a standard default configuration with AMM, you could change data also directly in memory with this tool without necessity to remove everything from buffer cache and read it from disk.
Kamil?
Yeah?
I have one quick question. So when you change the name, does the string has to be the same length?
Yes, valid point. The easiest way is to change everything to the same byte length. It's not impossible to change it to a different length, but this is the simplest way because changing to a different length requires to changing all pointers in the database block header and moving everything closer to the database block header. So it's not implemented here because it would be too, well, easy to exploit. Well, it's still easy, but it's not implemented here, but it's very easy to do it on yourself. When you see the code of this tool written in Python, it's like extremely easy code and very short. So, but yes, by default, this is the simplest way. Recently, I used this tool to recover a database that was corrupted by a company who was upgrading one of the components of the database. They didn't use a proper way of upgrading this component, and they caused logical corruption in Oracle dictionary. So instead of putting the upgrade process, instead of putting actual version number in the registry dollar table, put value null. And after a week after productional upgrade, they restarted the database, and it didn't want to go up because it said, well, Aura 604 actual value expected got null. So they put request to Oracle, SR to Oracle service request to fix it, and they said, well, you upgraded this component in a wrong way. You didn't use official way to upgrade it, so you have to restore a database from before upgrade and upgrade it correctly. But try to imagine face of a customer when you say to him, well, we have to move back with your database a week, so you're losing a week of productional data. Well, they were not happy. So this tool was created actually to be able to correct this kind of situation. But as you can see, it has a side effect also. So I think what is the most important, the most important thing here is that, well, you can have clouds, you can have autonomous database, you can have multiple million-dollar products and so on, but again, as Pratchett said, real stupidity beats artificial intelligence each and every time. So still, we just have to think, and I think that's it. As I said, I have only one slide. So if you want to check out these examples, please go to my blog. Everything is written there. And there is a link to GitHub to my tools. So, and if you want to ask me some questions, don't hesitate. I will be today on a party, and you can check me out on Twitter. And I almost forgot, this year, if you're interested in Oracle, we are doing quite a big conference in Sopot, in Zatoka Sztuki, here, in Tree City area. So if you're interested in meeting the real experts, and in the terms of security, I mean a guy who literally worked in FBI and CIA to secure Oracle databases, and not only, just check out poug.org. It's Pint with Oracle Users Group, and in Polish terms, browar z wyrocznią. So from the beginning, at 10 a.m. you have beer for everyone, and it's very informal, and we will have 50 world-famous speakers, so just check it out. Thank you. And I have one more beer for someone.
Any questions? Upstairs. Hi, great presentation.
Thank you.
I get a quick question about this, the first technique. So, how drunk the developers in Oracle need to be to implement, like, really implement remote code, the code execution, so you can define what kind of command you need to run and what script to run. Like, this is, I know this is feature, but
yeah, this is a feature.
but how drunk they are?
Well, actually, the case is that the problem here is not the functionality of executing a remote command. The problem is a privilege called create in a directory. And it should be never, ever, ever granted to any application. But unfortunately, a lot of applications have created a directory because they are using dynamic directories on operating system to write files or read files, and you would be surprised how many applications have DBA role. Right now in database 12c, in multi-tenant architecture, this can be limited, that even if you have created a directory, you will be able only to execute stuff from directories you define at the beginning. But again, it is not by default. So by default, if your application have too many privileges, you're screwed. Oracle is quite, well, big engine, and it has a lot of features, and until recently it had really low security level. Like 10 years ago in database 10G, they still didn't distinguish small and big letters in passwords. And it's really easy to exploit that, as you know already. Right now, it is much better, really, in the database 12c, it is much, much, much better. Like, they really started to care right now, but still, using defaults is terrible in terms of the security. Any more questions? Anyone want last beer? No?
Weird.
Weird.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Kamil.